Dr. Jensen, now to you as a veterinarian, and you had already indicated that you have your own beef operation. Many of our producers out there probably relate to the fact that I take a look at nutrition, but it's kind of well, only when I really need it, maybe in the wintertime or the calving season, that sort of thing. I'm sure you hear that a lot as a veterinarian when you go to their operations. But what about year-round nutrition? Does it really make a difference in the efficiency in the cow herd?
It really does, and one of the things I guess that I've noticed over the last 20, 30 years of my career, and particularly as I become more and more interested in nutrition, first starting my own cow herd, and then again, like I said, going back to school, is that, let's take mineral for example. A lot of people think it's necessary evil. Need to have it out there, you mean, but they haven't really thought about what's in there. They think, well, if I've got it out there, if they need it, they'll eat it. If they don't eat it, it's because they don't need it. And what I've been starting to look at and what the research is really pointing at is this nutrition is important year-round. A lot of us know in the wintertime we might need to supplement a little bit, whether it be protein or whatever, but what about pre-calving? What about pre-breeding? When in that animal's cycle is nutrition not important? That calf's growing during the summer, as we were talking about, the different, trying to the quality grades. If we're going to hit those targets, we've got to have vitamins, minerals, and things in order for that animal to grow and develop, to be able to yield and do the potential of those genetics that we've got.
And Larry, there's plenty of data out there. We talked about that earlier today and getting together before the show. You can talk about some of the research that supports what Dr. Jensen is talking about here.
Well, and even beyond the lifetime of the animal, while it's going through its phase with the cow, its stocker phase and feedlot phase, the amazing thing is that it also, the nutrition of the mother, the dam, has an impact on the later progeny in terms of not only the weaning weights and their growth in the feedlot, of course their health, Howard, but the other part of that that's also important and been shown in the University of Nebraska research, it has an impact on product quality. And so product quality can be impacted by nutrition throughout the animal's lifetime.
The doctor talked about trace, the minerals, and maybe if they want it, they'll eat it out there. What about trace minerals and the impact on health performance as far in quality and consistency that we've talked about here at the top of the show?
Well, that's a great point. We tend to focus on the more expensive items like energy and protein and things we have to buy in larger quantities or maybe spend more money on, but actually the area that recently been some excellent information showing the importance of trace minerals, particularly in certain parts of the country. Certain parts of the country may have problems with copper, or they may have high sulfur content in water that impacts some of the key points in terms of productivity. And so trace minerals are much more important than we once thought, and I think are taking a more important role in a good nutrition program for the cow herd.
Absolutely, and Dr. Jensen, I'm sure you underline that. That's very important to people like Vita Ferm as far as trace minerals are concerned.
It is. Working for an animal nutrition company this way has really made me focus on those trace elements and particularly, all the minerals. And, Dr. Cora, some of the research you did when you were at Kansas State, looking throughout the nation, in our area of areas that are short in copper and short in zinc, and, if they don't have it, they just can't do the things. And yet we're wanting this animal to be healthy. We're wanting the immune system. We know that the trace mineral status of that calf is going to be exactly what that cow is when that calf is born. And we go back to the University of Nebraska data that even goes on even further, talking about the reproduction of those heifers. And we talk about conception, to consumption, but it's even before that. Because having all those trace minerals and vitamins to allow that cow to not only get bred, but bred earlier in the cycle. One of the things that I think a lot about is if we talk about scouring vaccine, and we want to give those 30 days before they calve, well, if I can get that calving cycle tighter, get all those calf tight, it's going to make me easier to manage my health program right along with it.
Makes sense. And in fact, let's kind of follow up and talk about that a little bit as it relates to nutrition and as far as calves born, the weaning, pre-weaning, and post-weaning. Maybe you and Mark, if you could start out here and talk about two things, health and performance. Things that we talked about earlier today. I want to make sure the viewers are following along here as it relates to pre- and post-weaning practices and as it relates to health. Dr. Jensen, if you could start by kind of going through pre and post as it relates to some health issues.
Yeah, I'll take the health and you can take the carcass side of that. There's data by Whittam and Perino that said that calves that didn't get enough colostrum, of a quality colostrum, were sicker, they didn't grade all the way the rest of their life. And so I always tease this, so when did the nutrition of that calf, when did it really start? Way before it was even born. One of the terms I use a lot, everybody knows a precondition. Precondition, you were talking about, vaccinating calves for we wean them, black leg, red nose, those kind of things. But one of the things that I talk a lot about is nutritionally preconditioning. Because just because we give a vaccination, regardless of whose brand we use, that doesn't necessarily mean we get immunization. That calf needs the thing nutritionally to allow that immune system to be able to mount immune response so we can keep that calf healthy throughout his life.
Mark, before we talk about performance, I want to invite our callers to begin calling in here now and take some calls here, see what's on the minds of our viewers tonight as relates to Angus cattle, Vita Ferm, and their nutritional programs. The telephone number, as always, is toll-free, 877-731-6733, 877-731-6733. If you're just joining us on RFD-TV Live, we have two panels tonight, 2 half hours here tonight, talking first about nutrition, and then three new panelists will come in to talk about, okay, how we take that nutritional program, capitalize on it with more money in your pocket. So again, toll-free number there. Any question you might have for any nutrition as it relates to people from Vita Ferm or the American Angus Association and the programs we talked about. Now, okay, now Mark, if we talked about the nutrition side, pre-weaning, post-weaning. What about that carcass and performance?
You bet. And not to, we all know the importance of health as it relates to performance, but we also need to fully understand the role of health as it relates to carcass merit. You get those calves sick coming into the feedlot, they're not going to grade. And then you throw the nutritional side of what we can do pre and post weaning on those calves on top of that. Those calves, and what we've found, and it's really been uncovered, I think, in some of the early, or the work that's been on early weaning. Taking these calves off their mothers at around 100 days or 150 days and putting them on a high concentrate diet. And we saw tremendous marbling and carcass quality out of those cattle. And I think God is, as an industry, thinking about this a little bit different and realizing that we can impact, you put some starch and put some energy in those calves early on, we can change how those, what the carcass outcome of those cattle are going to be. And pre-weaning, or that early weaning, that may not be a manageable strategy. That may be not economics may not dictate that for every scenario. But looking at a creep feed, get those calves, especially if they're on those cows, maybe a set of first calf heifers that the milk production's not there, or where those calves maybe in a drought situation where there's not the energy out there, those calves aren't getting the energy. If they're not on a positive energy plane, if they're not being nutritionally supplemented like they need to be, you're sacrificing carcass quality down the road. And I think there's been a mindset out there that if we creep feed, we're gonna take all the carcass performance out of them, or all the feedlot performance out of them. Those cattle won't gain, they won't convert, and that's just not true. We found today with a lot of the Angus genetics are out there in particular, a lot of growth potential in those cattle. They're going to go right into the feedlot. Now, we don't want to get them fat. We don't want to get them fleshy. But those cattle that have been on a positive growth plane go right into those feedlots. They take off. They go right to the bunk, start eating, and off they go and perform really, really well.
Right. And, and once you get into that stress condition, you talked about, no matter if it's winter weather or whatever it might be, you really never get that back. Am I correct in that, as far as nutrition and the performance of the cow or the calf? You're never going to get that back, really.
Right. Those are lost pounds.
Very good. We have some callers on the line already. Do you want to take some, we'll see what's on their minds and ready to answer some questions?
You bet.
You go to work. We'll put you to work here, Doctor. All right.